Hi, I'm Dr. Amanda Kane. I am emergency medicine and also a clinical assistant professor of medical education here at OSU. And today I am speaking with these two already distinguished student doctors, student Dr. Desiree Jones and student Dr. Paul Delgado, who are going to speak to us today about their views on the intersections and outcomes of the social determinants of health in their communities. So could you guys both start by just telling us a little bit about yourselves, and student Dr. Delgado, if you want to go first.
Hi, my name is student Dr. Delgado. I am a current third year medical student. A little bit about myself. I was actually born in Oklahoma, but I was raised in Mexico City. And I moved back when I was 13. I was always interested in medicine, but I knew the best training that I could get was here in the States. So I moved here. I didn't know any English. I knew the ABC. And I think all the sacrifices have paid off. I went to OU for undergrad, and I am very blessed to be here pursuing my doctoral degree.
Thank you.
And my name is Desiree Jones. I am a third year medical student at OSU. And I was born and raised in Tulsa, where I saw all of the disparities between North and South Tulsa, and that led me to become a doctor. Moved to Houston, and then I had to come back home for medical school. But yeah.
Good. Well, we're so happy to have you
Thank
with
you.
us today, or with me. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first question. So after watching the Social Determinants of Health primer, what were your first thoughts about your community and the impacts of social determinants of health?
When I watched the video, I was both frustrated and hopeful. I was frustrated because of all of the obstacles that are like in the community. Like I said, I was born and raised in North Tulsa, so I saw those social determinants of health like take place, and so it's really frustrating to see them and then not be able to do anything about them until now. And so that's why I'm also hopeful, is because this conversation is happening. You know, there are people who are interested in wanting to help, and we're learning more about what these factors are in healthcare.
Just have a little fly.
Yeah, I'm glad that, you know, more light is being shown on these issues, because that means that we can now address them and make things better for the community.
Yeah, good.
Thanks, Desiree. That was a great insight. I think for me, one thing that happened in 2020 was COVID-19, right? And I think for me, I had done a lot of work with the community previously, with the Hispanic Latinx community of Oklahoma City, but I think COVID brought the spotlight to what happens when it comes to social determinants of health. And this was really when we got to see how Black, Brown, indigenous communities, people of color, were heavily impacted. People with lack of housing, lack of food access, people living in multi-families in one small apartment. And so I think it was, for me, when I watched this video, was this is stuff that people live through every day. And I am so glad that, unfortunately, something like a pandemic had to happen for this to be brought up to light. But now it's being addressed, and it's being addressed locally. It's being addressed at the state level and national level.
Thank you, guys. All right. So how have you experienced the social determinants of health effects in your life, personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, I consider myself still like first generation immigrant, even though I was born here. It's like a different terminology, but it's so different when you raised in another country. For example, for my community and myself, just learning a new language, navigating a whole different culture, having to assimilate to a culture, having to navigate that, it's very difficult. And so I think I speak for myself and I speak for a lot of other immigrants. I think being removed, sometimes it's by your own choice to go for a better life, but being removed from your country to move to another place comes with a lot of challenges. And so when we look at health outcomes, going to the doctor, not speaking English, having to wait for a translator, sometimes it takes so much time. And now that I see it, that I'm at the hospital, it's if you have somebody that speaks their language and that can connect with the patients culturally and linguistically, it's a whole different level.
Yeah, that's good. Like I said, I was born and raised in North Tulsa, and for people who don't know, there's a life expectancy difference between North Tulsa and South Tulsa of like 10 years.
Wow.
And that's absurd, in 21st century, in a modern country. And of course, growing up, I didn't know that like these were social determinants of health. I didn't know that these things were different. I just saw, like no sidewalks on the street or long stretches of road without lights. So it's scary to go outside. I didn't see the fancy grocery stores like a Reese's or even a Walmart, but I did see a Family Dollar, a Dollar General, Dollar Tree. When I was younger, I couldn't tell you how much a pound of grapes cost, but I could tell you that a 6-pack of ramen noodles is $2.50 at Family Dollar. And these are just things that like I grew up with, like, and my story's not unique to North Tulsa and other, communities. These are just things that we have access to. This is how we have to live our lives. And so as I've gotten older and realized that, like, oh, these are the types of things that are determining people's well-being in the community. It's not just, okay, go outside and exercise for 30 minutes. It's, okay, do I feel safe going outside? Yeah. Is there a green area for me to go outside and play in? And so it's things like this that I think it's important for people to take into account when we're discussing health. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation about social determinants of health, because it's so much bigger than, change your diet when all you have is a Family Dollar next to you.
Yeah. Okay, so both have very unique, I know you said it wasn't unique to you, but it is a unique insight to bring to the table, to put light on, to be able to talk about. Glad that you guys are here doing that. So the follow-up question to that is, how have the social determinants of health affected your social circle, including family, friends, and colleagues? So a little bit outside of you, but I'd imagine kind of along the same lines, but how else do you see that play out?
Right, so most directly, I saw it impact my mother. She got really sick when, after she had my little sister. We had no idea what was going on. All we knew was that Mom had to go in and out of clinics. Heard her say that she needed to drive to the other side of town to see specialists. Maybe didn't have like the gas money to make it to the other side of town or to afford medications. And then again, when I'm that young, I have no idea that this is just, things that are outside of our control, really. But seeing her and what she went through fueled the fire of me wanting to become a doctor, really, to try to change those some aspects of social determinants of health, and having a physician that looks like you, can relate to you and will listen to you, and also have resources in those communities and not have to go to the other side of town. So where I grew up, everyone was pretty affected by these social determinants of health. And so hopefully when I graduate and go back into the community, everyone will benefit from all of the changes that not just myself, but the community can bring to it.
Thank you.
I think for my community, so I consider myself, I guess, from Oklahoma City. And even here in Tulsa, now that I get closer to the Tulsa community, I feel like immigration status is such a, I mean, it's a status and it's an identity that a lot of people have. And so when we see people looking for jobs, I mean, you have to take into account whether you have a legal status and what type of job access you have. Do you have access to healthcare? Can you go to school if you don't have DACA or if you don't have a residency or citizenship? You know, so I think it's more than immigration status is more than just that. It affects everything. I think personally, and something that I'm very passionate about is just prevention, like health prevention. And I see it in my family. I had a family member living in LA, and whenever he had heart disease, he went to the doctor and he couldn't understand what was going on with his heart, the procedure he was about to undergo, and he called me. I had to translate because there was nobody helping him translate in LA. And so when I see that, it's like, hey, what's going on in cities like Tulsa, Oklahoma City, cities with a lower percentage of Spanish-speaking people and like Spanish-speaking providers in general. So I think the community, the Hispanic community, immigrant community itself, I think social determinants of health and the way that impacts them, it's unique. And something that I do want to mention is for a lot of us, and I talk about this with Desiree and other friends, when we think about minority communities and the way that social determinants of health impact us, a lot of times people tend to group us as one, but there's different history, different cultures, different backgrounds, and so although we share many struggles and similarities, it's not the same. So.
And just kind of to go back, like in the beginning, you said you felt both overwhelmed and hopeful, and I think that's this whole thing, but just listening to you guys talk and listening to you talk about your passion to return to those communities and help them in a meaningful way that you know how to help because you've lived that, like, and that overwhelming feeling, it reminds me of the starfish story, you know, where like world peace or whatever, like maybe you don't fix it all, but it makes a difference to that person, right? Like in your community where you came from. So I'm hopeful as well for you. Overwhelming and also hopeful. I agree. So the next question is, how have you and or your community worked to address the social determinants of health? So what have you guys done? I know you guys are both involved in already helping with that as third-year medical students. I don't know where you come up with the time or energy, but tell us what you're doing already.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm very passionate about is working with UMA Tulsa. UMA Tulsa is a nonprofit that was created in 2020 during COVID-19, and it's a nonprofit that focuses on addressing Hispanic health equity. And the way that they work is they pretty much are where people live, work, pray, eat, all over the city, even though it's a brand new nonprofit almost. So I started working with them and volunteering with their COVID-19 clinics, vaccination clinics. And later, when I was applying for the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship, I reached out and asked if they would be willing to be my partner project and partner community site. And we were able to implement health screenings for community members, where we've able to offer blood pressure and blood sugar screenings in Spanish for over 400 people that live here in Tulsa. Also created a curriculum that addresses cardiovascular disease prevention, because as we know, it's the number one leading cause of death in Spanish as well, culturally and linguistically approachable. And so that's on health-wise. I think the other aspect when it comes to social determinants of health is who we see when we go to the doctor. And so I think being able to increase not just the diversity, but also the way that we keep the people that we're recruiting to medical school, to nursing school, to every health profession. And so I've been very lucky to being able to work with Dr. Chris McNeil, which is also an OSU graduate, working with youth medical mentorship. And so it's an initiative that it's recruiting kids from Tulsa. And now we're expanding to Oklahoma City, but we're recruiting kids to just show them that they can do this, even though that they didn't grow up seeing somebody that looked like them. Now we're coming in and saying, hey, you can do this. We're here for you, and we're willing to be there for you throughout this journey.
That's so important. Like even with my kids, you know, people that do hard things, I say, who does hard things? People who think they can. So you guys being out there at that stage in their development, for them to even have that first idea of, they say I can, maybe I actually can do that. That's the first step in moving in that direction. So very important work.
And just to expand on that, you know, you can't be it if you don't see it. I'm an Albert Schweitzer Fellow as well, and my project was focused on a group of students at a North Tulsa Alternative High School named Phoenix Rising. And these students all have a history of either being justice involved or at a high risk of being justice involved. And unfortunately, there's a disparity of, you know, Black and brown children being sent to alternative schools or in school suspension compared to other populations. And so I wanted to introduce a kind of a class of healthcare careers and health themes and introduce them to all of these careers that they might not have even known was available to them, and also brought in different professionals, Black and brown professionals that looked like them, so they could feel inspired and know that they could do these things too. Ultimately, you know, trying to break that high school to prison pipeline and create a high school to healthcare pipeline. And you know, and that's the first step, really getting out in the community, and you know, children are the future, and getting them involved to see that. And then I also am very active in advocacy around the area. I used to say that I wasn't very political at all. You know, I don't like politics. I'm not a political person. Until, you know, I got more involved and understood that, like, we don't have the luxury to not be involved, to not be a political person, because politics affects every person. And so I've joined groups that align with this purpose. So I'm part of AMA, AOA, even local, you know, TCMS, OSMA, to, you know, try to learn how to address these social determinants of health, because it's not just an individual problem, it's a systemic problem. And so we'll have to we have to we'll have to get involved and have a say in these policies that are affecting our community and like the patients in our community. So I think that's just as important as, you know, having boots on the ground.
The game is being played with politics. The game is being played, whether you're sitting on the bench or you're in the game. It's being played one way or another. So, okay, what would you want the larger community, and this says, such as the state of Oklahoma, the country, the world, what would you want the larger community to know about the importance of the social determinants of health?
I just want them to understand that, you know, it is important. It's not any individual failing of someone or why, like, their health isn't, you know, supreme. There are systemic issues that not one person can fix. And that's why I say that I'm hopeful, because now there's a light being shined on these issues, the social determinants of health, you know, these interviews. And I feel like the more that people hear about them and understand them, the more that we can address them. Because it's not one person can do it. We need the entirety of the world to help address these issues. So I just want to encourage everyone to get involved in advocacy, get outside of your community, of your bubble, and, you know, talk to people and really see what other communities are going through, and you know, ask how to help, and ask yourself how you can be a better neighbor, a better community member, and how to get involved in these situations.
I think for me and for those people that are going into a medical profession, I think it has to be more, as you mentioned, Desiree, than why can't you get healthy? Like, there's a lot more. We need, before we send a patient out, we need to make sure that they have transportation, that they have a safe place to stay, that they have food. I mean, somebody can't get better without just the basic necessities, right? We need to make sure that we address that before we say this patient is not getting better because they're not taking their medication, right? And so I think that's, for me, that's the, like, basic needs have to be met when we talk about health, and then of course we think about how we approach them as future healthcare providers, and just for like the state, the city, the world, I think we need allies. Allies is a huge thing. We are, for when it comes to Hispanic Latinx physicians in the United States, it's 6%, and 6% is not enough. So I think we need people that are willing to put in the work as much as we are, and be there, just be willing to learn, be willing to be teachable as well, and know that what they're doing is it's benefiting the entire nation pretty much. So I think having allies and having compassion for others, and compassion for your own self, because this work is hard. It's pretty challenging. I mean, a lot of the times you're like, why is this happening? And it's not something that you can, it's a systemic issue, right? So I think just being compassionate with yourself and be there for other people.
Good. All right. So we'll wrap it up with, please expound on what gives you hope for the future about the health of your community. And you can start, since it's a hope question.
I love hope. I am hopeful because, like I said earlier, these conversations are happening. I'm hopeful because I see people like myself and Paul and all of our classmates and cohort members being active and getting out there and trying to address these situations. It makes me feel like, we're on the right track, and even if I move out of Tulsa, I still know that there are wonderful community members here, or in the same clubs or in the same cohorts, making community projects and making a difference, people who are advocating for those who can't speak for themselves. That brings me hope that things are changing, and you might not see it right in front of you, but the wheel is slowly turning, and hopefully, it's only up from here.
Yeah, it's only up from here. I mean, like I said, I think COVID-19 brought a huge spotlight to this issue, and I think institutions and organizations are moving the wheel forward, right? Like us as individuals, we can only do so much. So I think we need to work with, I mean, we talk about public health, we talk about politics, we talk about everything to be able to address some of the basic issues, basic needs, to address some of those health equity and health inequalities that we face. So I think I am hopeful that the new generation is Gen Z is yeah. I think it's we're going in the hopefully right direction. So I think just being here today, it's just a testament to that.
Well, thank you so much for just your insight and your unique perspectives. You guys are wise beyond your years. You have experience beyond your years. And it's one thing to be wise and have experience, but you guys are putting it into action, which is just very admirable. And like I said, you're already distinguished as third-year medical students, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is you're already making a difference. I'm just thankful that you guys were able to come share today definitely appreciate you, and I'm hopeful with you. Thank you guys.
Appreciate it.